Completing the square. So, big picture, we're going to be learning all sorts of different ways to solve quadratic equations. So like any kind of equation that has a square in it is quadratic. And there's going to be a bunch of different ways to find the answers. Factoring was one way, and some people like that, some people don't like that. Completing the square is going to be another way to solve them, which is totally different than factoring, and it's kind of its own unique way. Now the good thing about completing the square is that every equation you can find the answers for. Where like for factoring, you couldn't necessarily do every equation with factoring. And then after completing the square, we're going to learn something called the quadratic formula, which you may or may not remember from the past. But quadratic formula is just kind of a single formula that would be able to find the answers for every quadratic equation as well. And it's got advantages, disadvantages. The main disadvantage is that it's kind of a big formula, and so it takes some time to work. But some people like certain things, hate certain things. It's just kind of own personal opinion, but we're learning all the different ways to solve things. So completing the square sort of uses factoring. It uses an idea from factoring. We don't actually do factoring. If you have two of the same factor, you can write it as squared. And that's kind of the whole name, completing the square. We want to write something as a perfect square like this, like a parentheses square. And then we use that to find the answers. Now, it sounds simple when we start off by saying it like that, but there's definitely things involved. So first and foremost, the quadratic thing that you're working with has to be a perfect quadratic square so that you can write two of the same factors as a squared. That's kind of the big deal, like the hard part of the problems. Once you get this idea down, it goes very fast. This is just the hardest part. So we're actually not even going to do the full problems yet today. Today we're practicing the hard portion of the problem only, and that's trying to figure out what number we would put like where this 9 is. The problems we're going to get, it's going to be blank. And we're going to try to figure out the number that should go here to make it a perfect square. That's all we're going to practice today / through Monday. You basically get a week to do this, so there should be 0 issues. That's what we're doing. So then, like say we have one right here. So you'll get something that looks like this, x squared plus 8x plus blank. And you're going to try to figure out a number that you would put in there and the phrase they use that completes the square. Get off your phone. So we're going to be looking for the number that makes it perfect so that it can be factored into two of the same factors. Now, I already have the answer up there. But we're making our way to doing it on your own. I'm trying to show you the thought process that you would do. So what I wrote in red is kind of what you're going to be thinking to yourself. So if you see x squared plus 8x plus blank, and you're trying to figure out the perfect square number to add to it, well, if we factor this, the two numbers have to add to the middle term. Right? Remember they have to multiply to the end, add to the middle. Well, that would mean the two numbers have to add to 8, and they're the same number. So that's 4 and 4. Most of you will be able to figure these out pretty quick, and I'll show you in a second here. So if 4 and 4 are the two numbers, well, then that would mean those two numbers multiply to 16. So 16 would be the number you would put in place of the question mark. That would be the number that completes the square. I'm hoping you're semi-asleep still because I'm getting 0 recognition on your faces. Let's do fist of 5 so that I can kind of get an idea where you're at. How well if I just give you a blank one and say, put the number that completes the square, how well would you be able to figure out that number? Oh, so I should move on, is what you're saying.
Well, no.
I like it. What? Oh yeah, we have more examples. We definitely have more examples.
You should move on. We understand.
Okay, I just didn't know if you wanted me to kind of explain this more. Yes, question, Sean?
Oh, no.
Oh, you're still showing the score. All right. So there are two methods for doing this. I would say the more popular method is probably the one on the right, because, like if you're a person that likes steps to be able to solve things, the one on the right is steps. The one on the left is you just thinking it mentally. So x squared minus 10x plus something, trying to figure out the number to add to that completes the square. The method on the left is kind of what I just said out loud for the problem we just did, is you would figure out what two numbers add to negative 10, and they'd have to be the same, so negative 5, negative 5. And if you multiply them, you'd get positive 25. The method on the right is just, like I said, if you prefer steps, and most students do, then the method on the right is probably what you'd like to do. You take the b, remember b is the number on the x, you take b and cut it in half. Question?
Oh, no.
Okay. Take b and cut it in half, which would be negative 5, and then square it, which would be positive 25. I'm not going to tell you which way you have to use. Completely up to you.
Does step or this method to work for all numbers?
Mm-hmm. So part of the reason I think some people like the method on the right is if the number you're given isn't very nice, like say you're given a number like 2.3. Some people absolutely prefer the steps because trying to figure out that answer just works a lot easier when it's a bad number. If it's a nice easy number like negative 10, well then it's both of them are about the same. Does anybody need this up here yet? Because I can certainly wait. Okay, let's try this one. Just try to figure out the number that would complete the square. And this is where I was trying to say at the beginning of the hour, once you figure this out and get it down, these go really fast and they're definitely very quick. Now, if it feels confusing to you, then these go really slow because it's just trying to figure out what to do inside your head. Since we are going to have very few people answer today, I will just roll myself. 10. 10 is Haley. Haley, did you feel like you figured this out enough that you could figure out the answer? Okay, let me get the marker ready. What color do you want? Since we have not much to do. Red, okay. Because it doesn't have to be standard colors. We can make any color. All right. What did you get for the answer there?
Is it +4?
Perfect. I'll go for somebody else. Absolutely correct. +4 is correct. One. Well, Tracy will be one once I actually print it out, but that'd be mean today too. Sean. Oh, try not to sneeze. Sorry. Sean, my question I was going to ask is, how come this number can never be negative? Perfect. So even if this was a negative number like this one, when you square it, it becomes positive. So this portion at the end, what the heck? What? What happened? This portion at the end will always be plus a number, because even if it started off as negative, it'll, when you square it, it becomes positive. Yeah.
If I type in -2 squared on my calculator, I get -4.
So, without saying it badly, I'll write it up here. You typed it in wrong. So
Oh,
if
no,
you
that's good to know.
if you type it in your calculator like this, like that's, I'm sure that's how you typed it in.
Yeah, well,
Yep.
I tried doing it with the little
Parentheses.
Oh, you do it. Never mind.
So if you type it in your calculator like this, then it would give you 4. The one on the top, it does the squaring first, like order of operations, and then it multiplies by the negative.
So you should always type it in parentheses.
Yes, or you just do it in your head.
Well, yeah, I just do it.
And theoretically, you don't even need to put the negative because you know the answer would be positive.
Okay.
So there's different routes you could take. I guess we didn't explain this though. So Haley just kind of did this. Did you cut this number in half or something? Okay. So -4 divided by 2 was -2, and then you squared it to get 4. Okay, try this one. Obviously slightly harder. We don't have that many people. I definitely feel like I'm doing the NBA lottery when I do that. Maya, I don't know if you're done or not already. I just thought I'd let you know ahead of time, so maybe if you wanted to ask for help or not, but did you get it already?
I mean, I divided 7. I did 7 divided by 2, then I got 3.5.
Sort of correct. So what you're saying isn't wrong, and the number answer isn't wrong because you probably had the answer as a decimal?
Yeah.
Yep. General rule of thumb. If a problem starts with decimals, so like if this number in the middle was like 7.3, so if it starts with decimals, then your answer should be in decimals. I mean, it's theoretically not wrong any which way. The only time it would be wrong is if you rounded a decimal, because that's just kind of like estimating. If a problem does not start with a decimal, then the answer should not have a decimal. So that generally will mean fractions on your part. Starts without decimals. This will matter quite a bit on the sheet of homework questions, because there are some on there with decimals, there are some without. So what you said was correct. So you took half of it, and then I'm going to guess you squared it. So I don't even know what 3.5 squared is. 12.25. Okay. So 12.25 is the correct answer, but we're going to not do that because I want you to practice kind of to keep it how it was. I'm going to guess there's somebody in here without rolling and calling on individual person. Does somebody remember how to square fractions? So we're trying to take 7 halves squared. And theoretically, you should be able to do this in your head without even touching the calculator. It looks like a no. Okay. Yep, go ahead. Not even an educated guess.
14.
That's an educated guess, but not right. But that is a decent educated guess. What'd you say?
Is it just 7?
No. That would be if I doubled it. I think that's kind of what you were doing there, Onyx, too, right? Yeah.
49/4.
Good. There we go. I don't know if that's what you're going to say, too. So if you square a fraction, you square the top number and bottom number separately. So it would be 49/4.
But the one that just be the same fraction?
as 12.25? Oh, you mean like if it reduces down?
Yeah.
No, it seems like it should. Like, I've always thought that too, but it definitely doesn't because 49, the only factors of 49 are 7 and 7. And so that doesn't reduce with a 4. Yeah, it seems like it should because you're multiplying by itself, but because you're doing 7 over 2 times 7 over 2, because both fractions are reduced to start with, your final answer would automatically be reduced. No, I know what you're saying. How'd we do on that one now that, like, are we okay with it now that I showed you the way you should probably do it? Yeah,
If we
okay.
end up giving you the answer of 12.25, would you consider that incorrect?
Well, I'll put it this way. You're not going to have a calculator on the test, so I would probably practice it without the calculator just to get used to it. And there are a couple with decimals where you obviously should use a calculator, but I would practice without one unless you really need it.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything else? This is actually the end of the notes for this first part. We're going to do the second part when we come back from break. Okay, so we have, I can't tell what time it is, 9? We have about a half hour to do it.